Greetings and good Saturday morning, this 9th of November 2024, still the third decade of the 21st century. Um, what's been going on? Well, um, normally, if you're new to my channel, I always open up with the phrase, third decade of the 21st century to sort of hyper expose the fact that it is indeed the third decade of the 21st century as a means of sort of pointing out, hey, this is where we're at as a society, and look at the things we're talking about. Look at the stuff that we're dealing with versus where people had suggested we would be. So if you're new to my channel, that's why I do that. If you're not new to my channel, you'll notice that the background is quite different. Um, about 13 weeks ago, 12 weeks ago, I think 12 weeks ago, I changed jobs. My previous job gave me a little bit more free time, wasn't as busy, and I had more time to do this kind of content. If you're also new to my channel, I use this content a little bit selfishly as a form of free therapy. I sort of use it to vent and kind of put my stuff out there. And then also, I guess you could say selfishly, I'm trying to increase conversation. I'm trying to bridge gaps and extend olive branches so that we could try to communicate with one another, especially if we disagree. It doesn't really do us any good if we constantly link up together with people we agree with and form these teams and draw these lines in the sand and, demonize and dehumanize each other. Um, Now, with that being said, for those of you that are not new to my channel, yes, I do owe you a read, react, and respond video. If you are new to my channel, one of the things I love to do is if you leave a comment, I always try to read, react, and respond to them. The last video I posted is about 2 months ago, which, yeah, is about right. I've had this job for about 12 weeks now, and I'm currently relocated from home to go to school to learn how to do the job. And the job requires me to be a federal employee, which also means I have to conduct myself in accordance with the Hatch Act. I recorded about a 20-minute video during my drive out here, only to realize while I was driving, I was getting paid to do so, which means I was technically on the clock, so I couldn't make that video, or I couldn't post that video. So now I'm off the clock. Yes, I'm in government quarters, but I'm off the clock. This is my free time, so I'm not violating the Hatch Act. Not that I'm going to get too deep into politics necessarily, but I will get on that. I do owe a read, react, and respond video, so that is forthcoming. But obviously, there's been some changes in my life that's kind of prevented me from making this content. Similar to the video I made during the drive out here, the short level focus is essentially this. I have seen a lot of comments lately, mostly from people who are left of center or full on left or some variation of. And a lot of it is in keeping with a lot of the vitriolic mantra, a lot of the hate mongering, a lot of the fear mongering pertaining to the current president elect. Um, Tragically, I get it. And I had to come to terms with the fact that I get it. And I'll explain here in a moment. Before I do, I'm going to pose some questions. All right, and maybe I'll go a little out of order, but that is kind of who I am. So maybe I'll try this different approach. Okay, I've seen a lot of comments from people that I've been friends with for a while, from new friends, from new acquaintances, and just comments or concerns or questions or whatever you want to say. Um, that being said, who's blowing me up? Interesting question. uh, Classmates are asking questions. So, with that being said, in light of these comments, in light of these concerns, in light of these questions, in light of these fears, I kind of want to point some things out, and then I'm going to kind of wrap it up with a question, so to speak. And that question does sort of require or request in that request is a more humble term, some feedback. Um, so for a lot of people that are posting their concerns, their dislike, their disdain, their fears, try to imagine if you can. All right, if you can get there, if you can allow yourself a moment to breathe and see things from a different perspective, that there is possibly an entirely other half of the population that disagrees with you and had the exact same concerns, questions, and fears when, say, your candidate or your political party won or was in power. Okay? Now, I've been tossing this back and forth, and I'm kind of curious. I'm interested in some feedback. I don't know that we're 50-50, 50% blue, 50% red. I think we're somewhere between 40 to 45 blue, 40 to 45 red, and anywhere between 10 to 20% in the middle where people just don't care, they're unconcerned. It's just not their thing. Trust me, I would much rather be in that percentage. I would much rather be in that group because I remember my life before I was concerned. I remember my life before I got involved, and I remember my life before I cared. And I think I was a bit more carefree and a little happier. Um, and I don't remember politics being so popular, so zeitgeist, so front facing. But here we are. Um, some of the things I've observed that not everybody has to agree with, not everybody can get there. Not everybody can take a deep enough breath, calm their mind down, and be objective enough to maybe see things for what they are. And that could go for me as well. I'm not blind to the fact that in spite of my best efforts, I could still be a hypocrite. I think we started to get to a point in my lifetime where we started to elect people for the wrong reasons. I think former President Obama was elected as a sort of messianic figure and was given messianic treatment. And the reason I say that with my own personal objective justification is the position of the president never used to be such a hands-off position. As far as media outlets, as far as comedians, being the president did not make you immune from criticism, did not make you immune from being the butt of a joke. I feel like former President Barack Obama got a messianic treatment, so to speak, where he could do no wrong, he could not be the subject of a joke, and if for no other reason, perhaps it was because of his appearance. People were too afraid to be branded or labeled something they weren't just because they were doing what was natural. You pick on the position, so to speak. And then I'm also curious if whether people agree or disagree, if when he was replaced by former president, now President-elect Trump, if you can also see, if you could take a moment to see the distinct hypocrisy, the distinct difference in treatment. I don't care if you think he deserves it or not. I'm saying when he announced his team of choice, he was revered, he was loved, he was respected, everybody wanted to be in his circle, and then he announced he was going to play for the team that opposed the Messiah that was Barack Obama, that all of a sudden all of the forces marshaled against him. 90+% of the media organizations marshaled their resources against him and essentially became a massive propaganda machine for the left. I ask you, are you clear enough to see this? Are you objective enough to see this? Or because they prop up and they support your team and or your candidate, can you not see it? Kind of like, I guess if you grow up in New England and everybody supports the Patriots or the Red Sox, can you get behind anybody who is objective about the Patriots or the Red Sox? And I don't know if that's an apt comparison for people that don't follow sports, but if it's your team, can you see that nobody is speaking poorly about them? Nobody is being objective about them, that they're being extremely one-way, one-sided about who they're targeting, to include celebrities. celebrities became extremely vocal about their disdain for this man that they once loved and revered. But I digress. I think I've made the point clear that, the one thing that concerned me was how between celebrities, be they athletes, entertainers, you name it, marshaled their resources and their forces against him and the political party because, well, unfortunately, with our series of checks and balances, the Messiah could no longer run for a third term. So it just is what it is, or whatever the reasons were. And it kind of concerns me that it was this united effort. And can anybody not see it? I mean, and I'm asking legitly because I understand you don't like him or you don't like the party or both. But can you at least not see the hypocrisy, the dare I say conspiracy? Because it was a very, very concerted effort. And I hear a lot of people say, well, it's because it's justified. It's because he's a bad person. It's because of this, that, or the other. And it's like, yeah, but then you assume your team is pure. You assume that your team is free of flaws, free of hypocrisy. And that's not the case. You assume that your candidate is above reproach. And I guarantee that's not the case. So that concerned me. Not only that, but I'm not a big fan of being told what to do. I know how ironic that seems that I was in the military for over 20 years, that I'm a federal employee. When I'm on the clock, I respect being told what to do by superiors. When I'm in my own time, don't tell me how to think, don't tell me how to feel. All right? And that's kind of how I approach a lot of other subjects too. I look at so many things like religion, whether it's the LGBTQIA plus alphabet rainbow mafia. You do you, boo. But just like religion, leave me alone. Don't shove it down my throat. If I can physically see you, I can recognize that you exist. I don't have to agree. I don't have to agree with religion. I don't have to agree with the different types of religion. I can accept you. I can be humane as long as you're humane in return. But the moment you start placing demands on me, piss off. And I think that's pretty fair. I think it's fair. Because I think the quickest way to turn people away from you is to make demands of them. But anyways, moving on. As far as the current state of affairs, the other thing I couldn't understand is all the different things I heard, like, oh, well, if you don't vote for this woman, it's because you hate women, or if you don't vote for this woman of color, it's because you hate people of color, or women of color, or women and people of color. And it's like, what if the candidate sucks? What if the candidate is just god awful? Am I still a bad person because I just think the candidate is just god awful? Yeah, yeah, you are. I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's very myopic, it's very immature. I mean, you know, it's a very ignorant thought process. Are you that dedicated to your team? Well, I'm not really a Democrat. Well, then help me understand. Why is it so important to vote for this individual? Oh, because she's a woman of color. Is that the only reason? Well, she's not Trump. And it's like, okay, well, here's the thing. I don't care what your reasons are. If you voted, good for you. If you voted, you have stake in the game, and yeah, you have the right to bitch because you voted. I think that's pretty fair. If you vote and you lose, you have some skin in the game. Therefore, yeah, you know, you have the right to bitch. If you don't vote, shut the fuck up. If you don't vote, just shut up. Now, with that being said, I don't really care why you vote. I'm glad you exercised your right to vote. You put some skin in the game. You invested some time and some interest. Good for you. That being said, if you're not familiar with me, I utterly despise the Democratic Party, and I have my reasons for it. All right? You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to like them. I don't personally care. Especially if you're one of those keyboard warriors that hides behind the keyboard. My profile is who I am. I am not hiding. I'm not. That being said, one of the things I'm trying to put out there is when I first started doing this, part of my concept was I think I'm a good person. I think I'm a rational person. I think I'm a productive member of society. I think I try to do good and I try to invite good back upon me. I think and feel this way about certain subjects. Is it possible that other people could be exactly in the same boat, but think and feel differently about certain topics. And the conclusion I came to was, yeah. So do I need to think of these people as evil? Do I need to think of these people as bad? Do I need to think of these people as less than human and demonize them? And no, I don't think I do. I think we need to learn to try to get along, learn to try to communicate, stop drawing these lines in the sand. Now, for me personally, I feel like more people on the left become vitriolic, become hateful, become spiteful, and draw lines in the sand and throw a lot of hate and hateful words around. I mean, only the left could stimulate somebody to attempt to assassinate somebody, and at the same time, people on the left praise or become disappointed when the person was not assassinated. And I think that's a very, very, very sad state of affairs. And I think a lot of that exists strictly because of the way things are being reported. And that the fact that people cannot see the forest through the trees, that you're basically being manipulated to believe these things. He may not be a perfect individual, but I don't think he's as evil as he's being portrayed. I'm just saying. But now let's flip that coin. When your team and or your candidate or your ideology won in 2024, whether you voted specifically against Trump or whether you voted specifically for Biden or you voted specifically for the Democratic Party, regardless of candidate, you won. Whether you won fair or not, you won, which means the rest of us who did not vote that way, we lost, and we had to suck it up. You didn't see us, you know, screaming or announcing our mental breakdowns on camera. All right, there's people that are popularly filming their mental breakdown. Conversely, whether you agree or disagree, there were events that took place in other cities that didn't get nearly the attention that January 6th did. January 6th got a tremendous amount of attention, was potentially agitated by people working for other people with a motive and a clearly defined motive in order to achieve a certain result or to achieve a certain effect. Were there idiots in January 6th? Of course. You get enough people together, you're going to find some idiots. It's just the nature of the beast. But look at how January 6th was treated versus any other event anywhere else. We don't hear hardly anything about Seattle. We don't hear hardly anything about Portland and various other places around the nation that experienced some extreme forms of jackassery. I'm just saying. If you'll excuse me for a minute, my phone's blowing up. Sorry, my fellow classmates from my duty station are hitting me up. So what I really wanted to do is I really wanted to kind of post a thoughtful question. So kind of getting back to how my whole channel started. All right. It started during COVID. It started during the whole election cycle. Something we just went through. Whether or not we're 40-40-20, 45-45-10, I don't know that we're completely divided 50-50, but, statistically, we're probably a majority left and a majority right with a very small percentage in the middle. That being said, I don't like the two-party system. All right, I dislike one party completely, and I will always vote against them if there's no choice to vote for somebody. It's not perfect. I'm flawed in that way. In which case, I understand if some of you have found yourself in a similar predicament. You're not a fan of a particular political party, but you dislike a political party or you dislike a person, so you're voting against them, not nearly as much as you're voting for somebody. I get that. I am not, in accordance with Newton's third law, by default a Republican. I don't like the Republican Party. I just don't hate them like I hate the Democratic Party. And I know hate is a strong word, but I think it merits. That being said, I say that a lot, don't I? Yeah, I saw more names on the ballot, and I thought that was great, but I didn't know anything about them. And I think that's sad. I think that the way that the system is built, we didn't get to hear about all these other candidates and get to hear what they stood for and find out more about them and find out if they're viable candidates to vote for. but I would like to see alternative third parties. If that means money, then maybe people like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates or whatever. I mean, I may not agree with some of their politics, but maybe they could fund alternative parties that can somehow bridge the gap between the things that the Democrats support, the Republicans support, but yet find something that's where we're at now. I mean, the Democratic Party didn't exist until the Confederacy. The Republican Party didn't exist until the Union. We had different political parties prior to that. We can create new political parties if we have to. And I've said this numerous times. That being said, God, why do I keep saying that? Why am I hooked on that? Somebody's going to pick that apart, and I applaud you for it. My question and concern is, beyond seeing the hypocrisy of the media, beyond seeing, because I know what you're going to say, oh, well, Fox News. Okay, get away from Fox News, all right, because Fox News is one organization that I could think of. The overwhelming majority are on your side. If you're a left-leaning person, the overwhelming majority are on your side, supporting you and your thought process and everything. Can you recognize that a large percentage of the country might disagree with you and yet still be good people? Can you recognize that a large percent of the country may have felt a lot of the same fears and a lot of the same concerns that you're feeling right now, whether it's rights, whether it's any number of issues that you're facing? Can you recognize that another half of the country may have felt the same way? Can you recognize that media organizations are labeling the other half of the country that's not on your team in a negative light, painting them in a negative light, negative names, negative labels? I mean, if you can get past your team for a second, I mean, think, like I said, I was trying to use the sports analogy. Depending on where you're from, all right, New England went through a period where the Red Sox were on fire, the Patriots were on fire, the Celtics were on fire. Hell, even the Bruins were on fire. So, like, Boston was just killing it. Well, if you're from Boston, you're probably all for it, all right? You're probably happier than a pig in shit. And if you're not from Boston, you could probably care less. Unless, of course, you're not from Boston, but you're a Boston fan. So in the frame and context of a sports reference, right? If it's for your team, can you recognize the bias? Can you recognize the hypocrisy, the lack of objectivity? I'm just curious. Can you recognize that not everybody agrees with you, but they don't hate you? I'm not saying people that may have voted the same way I did are perfect. I'm not saying that some of the people that voted the same way I did are not necessarily great people. But I mean, I got friends that I care about that were on Facebook talking about the Proud Boys being a white supremacist organization. They're not. The vast majority of Proud Boy members are Latino. If you actually look at the name Proud Boys and you research the organization, it was about the pride in being a man and doing things in a masculine way and being a manly man because of the attack on masculinity as of late. That's what it's all about. It has nothing to do with white supremacy. But somebody in the media started the lie, ran with it like it was the truth. So that's the kind of stuff I'm trying to put out there is, can you see the hypocrisy? Can you see the bias? Can you see the lies being told to you? And I'm not saying Fox News is any better. That's why I don't watch them. That's why I don't listen. All right? But can you at least see that while you certainly feel a certain way, and maybe you're not happy with the results, can you see that maybe there's another part of the country that felt the exact same way 4 years ago? And are they really bad people? Are they really negative stereotypes, negative virtues? Because I'm trying not to feel that way right now. I'm trying not to feel like, oh, ha ha, na 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 boo boo, your team lost. All the blue-haired, LGBTQIA plus mafia go eat a dick or something. I'm not trying to feel that way. All you pedophiles, you lost. Now it's time for recompense. I'm not trying to feel that way. All you whores that can't keep your legs closed and you need to have an abortion on call. I'm not trying to get there. All right, all these hot button issues. I'm a big fan of treating people humanely. I'm a big fan of context. That We take things out of context way too many times, and we oversimplify things for the purpose of sensationalism. All right? So, yeah, and if you're trying to soundbite that to make it, good luck, because I'm going to keep the original file so you can't use it against me. All right? I think the abortion topic is very sensitive, and, I think that's a very deep and personal choice. However, on the subject of abortion, I think there should be some sort of common sense shit or get off the pot law where you have a certain amount of time to make a decision before you've waited too long. We don't have to agree on that, but I'm not talking about when there's a risk of health to the baby or the mother. All right, I'm talking about like you're just sitting there on the fence. Should I have a baby? Should I not have a baby? Am I ready to be a mom? Am I not ready to be a mom? Otherwise, I try not to get involved in that one because it takes two to tango. There has to be a male figure in there somewhere who impregnates the woman. So, at some point we're talking about completely removing the father from this decision because he's not the one who can get pregnant. He's not the one who can carry the baby to term. I don't know how to handle that one. I don't know how to get involved in that conversation, so I just sort of bow out of it. But I will say, one of the reasons I dislike the Democratic Party, if it kind of helps you sort of get into my mindset, is I want less government. I don't want the government in control, all right? And if you think all these different things like, oh, healthcare and whatnot, join the military, enroll in VA healthcare, and try using VA healthcare. All right, if you want the government involved in abortions, why don't you talk to the Native Americans and or indigenous people about what it's like to have government-funded abortions? I'm just saying, I'm not being hyperbolic, all right? So, with that being said, I think I've been going on and on long enough, so I'm going to call it, all right? That's about 27 minutes. Hey, here's the deal. I don't give a shit about notifications. I don't give a shit about subscriptions. I don't give a shit about likes. I'm not in it for that reason. I'm just trying to extend olive branches here. I'm just trying to build bridges. I'm trying to create conversation. It doesn't really do me any good if everybody on my channel strictly agrees with me and we create this echo chamber. If we don't always agree, let's try to talk to each other, okay? Let's reach out and, hey, you're probably not a bad person. Let's talk. One of the people that watches my channel consistently, we don't agree on everything. We probably don't agree on a whole lot. We are on two different ends of the spectrum. But as adults, we've agreed we have to talk. As adults, we've agreed we have to communicate. So much so, you're going to love this. So much so that I would call this person a friend, that because I support my friends, I went out and I bought her books. All right? I haven't had time to read them. It's been that kind of busy. All right? Oh, but you take 30 minutes to make a video. Back off and I'll take 30 minutes to... This one, I got to read this one first. Okay? I'm getting there. Stace. All right? But Stace and I don't necessarily agree on everything. But we agree we need to talk. We agree that we need to have these conversations. And Stace, God bless her, she gets emotional sometimes and she puts some emotional stuff out there. And it's fine. I'm not going to disown her. I still can't believe she hasn't disowned me yet. So, But until then, if you leave a comment, I promise I will do my best to read, react, and respond. And if you do, you're awesome. Be safe out there.